Every day, millions of people buy things they never planned to buy. A new phone, another pair of shoes, a random online purchase at 2 a.m. Something that feels exciting for a few minutes and then slowly becomes meaningless. Most people think shopping is about needs, but often it has very little to do with needs at all, because many purchases are emotional, not practical, and modern society understands this extremely well. Think about it. Most people already own enough to survive comfortably, yet consumption never stops. Why? Because companies are no longer just selling products, they're selling emotions, status, identity, comfort, belonging, and sometimes even escape. That's why advertisements rarely focus only on functionality, they focus on feelings. Buy this car and feel successful. Wear this brand and feel important. Own this product and become a better version of yourself. The product becomes emotional, and emotions drive spending far more than logic. Social media made this even more powerful. For the first time in history, people constantly compare their lives to millions of others. Luxury vacations, expensive apartments, designer clothes, perfect-looking lifestyles. And over time, many people begin spending money to maintain an image, not necessarily because they truly want those things, but because they want the feeling attached to them. The feeling of success, the feeling of validation, the feeling of not falling behind. This is where spending becomes dangerous, because emotional spending creates temporary happiness, not lasting fulfillment. You buy something new, you feel excited. For a moment, life feels better. Then the feeling fades, and suddenly something else looks appealing. This cycle repeats endlessly, because if people became permanently satisfied, they would stop buying. The internet has also made spending frictionless. One-click purchases, instant delivery, buy now, pay later. Everything is designed to remove hesitation. And when spending becomes effortless, people stop thinking carefully about consequences. Small purchases feel harmless, but repeated daily, small spending habits quietly shape financial futures. Most people don't go broke because of one massive purchase. They slowly drift into financial stress through thousands of tiny decisions. But here's something even deeper. Sometimes people buy things because they're trying to fill emotional gaps. Stress, loneliness, insecurity, boredom, lack of purpose. Spending temporarily distracts people from uncomfortable emotions. That's why shopping often increases during stressful periods, not because people suddenly need more things, but because buying creates a short emotional escape. The problem is that emotional relief purchased through consumption never lasts very long. And ironically, many people buy expensive things to appear wealthy, while actually becoming financially weaker. A luxury car with debt, designer clothes with an empty savings account, a lifestyle that looks successful online but creates stress privately. Because real wealth and visible wealth are often completely different things. Real wealth is ownership, assets, freedom, financial security. Visible wealth is often just expensive consumption, and the two are not the same. Wealthy people understand this better than anyone. Many focus less on impressing others and more on buying assets that grow over time. Investments, businesses, real estate, things that generate future income instead of temporary attention. Because eventually, financial freedom becomes more valuable than social approval. And that shift changes spending behavior completely. Now, this doesn't mean buying things is bad. Enjoying money is part of life. Experiences matter. Comfort matters. There's nothing wrong with spending intentionally. The problem begins when spending becomes automatic, emotional, or driven entirely by comparison. Because when people constantly consume without awareness, they slowly trade long-term freedom for short-term satisfaction. Perhaps the biggest problem is that modern society constantly encourages consumption but rarely teaches restraint. Very few people are taught how advertising influences behavior, how dopamine affects spending, how social comparison shapes desires, or how delayed gratification builds wealth. So people grow up believing financial success is about earning more money, when often it's just as much about controlling unnecessary spending. At the end of the day, people buy things they don't need for one simple reason. They believe those things will improve how they feel. Sometimes it's about status, sometimes comfort, sometimes distraction, sometimes identity. But the feeling rarely lasts.
And eventually, many realized they spent years buying things when what they truly wanted was peace, freedom, confidence, or fulfillment, things money alone cannot permanently provide. The truth is, the most financially successful people aren't always the ones who earn the most. Often, they're the people who learned how to separate temporary desires from long-term priorities, because every unnecessary purchase has a hidden cost, not just the money spent today, but the future freedom that money could have created. And once people understand that, they stop asking, "What do I want to buy?" and start asking, "What kind of life am I trying to build?"